Alex Davidson, welcome to Power Presence Position.
Thank you, Eleanor. It's a real honor to be on this podcast. One of my favorites, of course.
I love it. So this conversation has been a couple of years in the making. We talk about the show a lot and things that comes up on the show. And I'm so excited to share your story of building CEO confidence and the lessons that you have learned and how you have really stepped into leadership in this really powerful way. So I'm so looking forward to the practical lessons, the fun stories, the juicy stuff. But before we get there, so I already kind of introduced you, but you're the managing director of Davidson London. Davidson London, you guys need to check out Davidson London on Instagram and you will see the gorgeousness. So Davidson London manufactures British made luxury furniture and it is totally gorgeous, right? It's totally gorgeous. It's like what, Shakes buy. It's what,
the royalty and
right.
Very, very important people.
Of course. And so it's just gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. You need to all go and check it out. So you're the managing director of this company, and we're going to talk a little bit about your pathway to get there. But I want to start way back.
Yeah.
So tell me about this. Is this family business that you run? Tell me a little bit about your childhood. What was that like? And what was it that you wanted to be when you were?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so what I remember from growing up is I grew up in antique shops. So my parents were antique dealers before we went into furniture design. And I lived in a place called Petworth in West Sussex, and it was full of antique shops. And my father had one, my mother had one. And in fact, actually, I think we probably had about 8 in that town over the course of 15 years. So hanging out in those shops was a big memory. But really, when I was growing up, I really wanted to be a fashion designer. So that was my big thing. I was obsessed with dressing up in my grandmother's old vintage clothes, and it was just one of those things I was always drawing. And yeah, it was just something that I always wanted to do. And when I look back on it now, it just feels quite natural, my whole progression, because although it was in fashion, it was still in a very creative environment that I always wanted to be in. So yeah, fashion was the main thing. And then obviously I ended up working in interiors instead.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, anybody who's met you, you have incredible style, and it's very distinct. You know what I mean? It's very distinct. Who were your sort of fashion idols when you were growing? Like, did you pay attention to Linda Evangelista and Naomi Campbell
Yes.
and Versace?
Yes. Yeah. So I don't know if you did this, but for me, I had fashion adverts and perfumes all over my wall.
Me too. Every inch of wall was covered with ads from Vogue, with pictures from Vogue. Oh my gosh.
That's exactly the same as me. And so, Kate Moss, all of it. I was just, absorbed with fashion. So yes, absolutely.
But I remember that so vividly. It must have been a thing. It must have been a thing at that time, because Supermodels sort of ruled the world. It was the age of Linda Evangelista and Naomi Campbell and Kate Moss, Christy Turlington, the great
Cindy Crawford. She was undoubtedly my favorite, and still, actually, I still love her to pieces. I still do her workout videos.
Okay, so listen, she's amazing. So one more quick question to this, because I know so many people are like, I did the same thing. Did you ever sort of as a teenager pretend in your bedroom that you were walking a catwalk?
Oh, absolutely. Always. In fact, you know what? Sometimes I still pretend that I'm doing it.
Exactly. Just down the street.
Yeah,
High knees.
absolutely.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
So you want to be a fashion designer. You're growing up in this family business.
Mm,
What a cool experience, seeing your
mm,
parents for,
yeah.
15 years running antique shops. Like, did you work as a kid in the family business?
Um, yeah, so good question. No, I didn't. But I did always work. And
Yeah.
that's something that I also remember from being a child, this huge desire to be independent.
Mm.
So whilst my parents were selling very high-end antiques in their antique shop, I would be setting up a stall in the street selling bits and pieces. And that was from a very, very young, early age. I would do anything to make money. So I would go and offer to clean people's cars. I would make little brooches out of little beads and go around selling them. I'd take things from around our house and try and sell those. I was always wanting to make money, and I do remember that was from a very, very young age. And then I started working as a teenager, probably from about the age of 13, just working in coffee shops, cleaning plates, waitressing, doing anything that I could do to really earn money. And
Right.
it's really interesting, again, when I look back on how focused I was on that as a young person, to then see my strengths as an adult now, and how that kind of now is coming into an alignment.
Mm. And when you look back on that experience, like, so your parents were selling super high end antiques.
Yeah,
You are selling your version, taking stuff from the house. I bet you
absolutely.
may just have sold some really like super expensive, like small knickknacks. You know,
Yeah, I could well have done.
you could totally well have done. What was the most profound lesson that you learned about selling and sales and making money from those childhood experiences? What comes through for you that you might like pass on to your daughter today?
um I think, don't be afraid to go and work. Don't be
Mm,
afraid to try and make money.
yeah.
I just remember just wanting to go and work. I loved working. And I think really that actually would be something that I would really encourage my children,
Yeah.
to really find something that they really enjoy, that is also going to pay them money, because then you've got a great existence there.
You do. And it's so interesting because I agree with you. And we've talked about loving our work. I
Yeah,
love the work
yeah,
that I do. I love working in the business. I love working on the business. I
yeah.
love talking to people about business. My favorite friends all have their own businesses.
Mm,
Sometimes people classify that kind of thing as workaholism. And I am not a workaholic. And I know that you're not either.
yeah.
Like we have this life outside. But I think that sometimes we can really paint, I think women in particular, we can paint women who love our work with this brush that we're workaholics or that kind of thing. But there's nothing wrong with digging in and getting into it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think if you can find the right thing, something that you're really passionate about,
Mhm.
it's just part of your life,
Yeah.
part of something that you do every day that really makes you happy and feel highly, highly satisfied.
So your desire is to be a fashion designer. And
Yeah,
I know that all of the people in the incubator who know you, and so it was like just this time last year, feel like we were in Mexico,
yeah.
one of our last gatherings. You had the most amazing outfits. You can see just this like just that sort of ease with style, which I admire. I think it's so great. I also really love people who can put together colors and patterns and stuff. That's advanced style. That is advanced style. When you can do patterns like mismatched
Yeah.
patterns, that's advanced. That's advanced. That really, you took the Vogue pictures on the wall to a whole other level, Alex.
Oh, good.
Respect,
Oh, good.
respect, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
So how do you go? What happens? So you graduate from school, from high school. We
Mm.
would call it, I don't know that you call it that over there, but
Yeah, school.
school, you graduated. The desire is to be a fashion designer. What happened from there? How did you want to get in the family business? Like, how did you find your way to
Yeah,
Davidson, London?
great question. I was actually I am dyslexic. So school actually wasn't the best experience for me. Um, yeah, it just wasn't. It wasn't the right school. And I actually didn't do very well in my exams at all. And I look back on it now and I really wish that I had understood my dyslexia more,
Mm,
because now I see it as a real power. And I think for people with dyslexia, when they are adults, it can be a real power. But when you're younger, it can be something really that can knock your confidence hugely. And it can take a long time to get over that. So, when I left school, I wasn't really in a great place because I didn't fully understand why I found everything so incredibly difficult. When it came to sitting in exams and the whole structure of school, it just wasn't really something that I gelled with. So I didn't go to university, and that's something that now I feel really proud of.
mm,
And I moved up to London, and I got a job in a publishing company, working on women's high-end social diary books, which was really fun. But it didn't. I wasn't feeling. I didn't have the area to grow. And then I ended up working in a PR company, and that was actually a fantastic experience. And with all of these companies, the one thing that I really remember is I had this huge passion for the women who ran them. They were all, between 10 and 15 years older than me, and they were really successful, really nice, engaging businesswomen. And I was in absolute awe of these women. I just
mm,
was like, that is where I want to be. That is what I'm meant to be. I have got to get there. So I knew that I needed to change my life a bit. So I actually left my work. I went and redid some education. And then actually, we'd always been talking, my parents and I, about me coming into the family business. And actually, it was at that point that I really said to them, look, please, can I come and join the business? I feel like it's the right time. We were looking to move to London and move our showroom up to London. Um, and so they took me on, and I worked for next to nothing, but I was just so motivated by wanting to make something of my life.
mm,
And that's really where it all started. And I when I look back on the beginning stages of my career, I really didn't know that much. I am all self-taught, and a lot of it through experience. And that experience is not always good. Some of it is bad. But I think that that's a good thing now. Now I can look back and reflect on it, that I really have learned through my own life experiences. So yeah, so that's where I started off in the family business.
Okay, there's so much to unpack in what you just said. It's so much. And so I want to go back to this idea of dyslexia as power.
Yeah.
Because I think so many people, this is so interesting. I recently did a post on Instagram,
Hmm.
and the post was, what advice would you give your younger self? And there were so many really smart women who said, don't worry so much about getting perfect grades.
Yeah.
Don't put so much pressure, because when we're growing up, and it's not to say it doesn't matter. Like, if you can do it, do it. Be your best. Do your best. All of that. But it's so interesting, as we're growing up, success looks like one thing. There's a
Yeah.
very clear definition. When you're inside an institution, there's a very clear pathway to success. And if that doesn't fit you, if you don't fit the mold, you can really feel like an outsider. And I love what you're sharing here, which is that you did.
Yeah,
You really
that's
had to sort of
exactly.
find yourself.
Mm.
What did you mean when you said your dyslexia is a power?
Um, I think with dyslexia, I think with people with dyslexia have a very holistic way of looking at businesses.
Mm.
So I am able to look at a business from right up at the top and not get too bogged down with all of the bits at the bottom. And that is a natural trait of someone with dyslexia. It's just looking at things differently and being able to have relationships with people in a way, bringing out the best in people, and just really a holistic way of looking at things, I
Mm.
would say.
Well, and that's so interesting because one of the things, and that makes so much sense as you're saying that, I didn't realize that that's like a trait of dyslexia, that ability
Yeah,
to actually have that 20,000 foot view. Because one of the things that strikes me about yourself is, so when I first met you, for instance, you were still very, like, speaking of sales and the ability to sell, you were still very involved in that activity in the business. And I can remember it, we're talking, the bigger theme here is CEO confidence, and building CEO confidence. And that was one thing that was important to you to step into that role, to really lead the company. And I remember being really impressed with the speed and certainty with which you have been able to extricate yourself from sort of day to day details, but not, sometimes people do that and they do it in the wrong way. So they'll get out of the details, but they're like, oh, the details are nothing. They don't matter. They're meaningless. So that's abdication. You know what I mean?
yeah.
That's abdication. Do you think would you say that that sort of elevation out of, day-to-day roles inside the company to that leading, empowering team, leading the organization as a whole, the ability to do that fairly quickly, would you say, is that an example of what you're like,
I,
what you're talking about?
you know what? Maybe it is. I hope it is.
Mm.
With regards to what you've just said, I really feel that my leadership and the confidence there was always there. I just needed
Mhm.
it to be brought out.
Yeah.
So it goes back to, say, when I was a child and having this independence, I always had in my head what I wanted to do, which was to be very independent and run a business.
I
And
love it. I love it.
it's what
I
I
wanted
always
to do
really
this.
wanted to do. And it's like it's just been my life calling. And so maybe that is why I have picked it up so quickly, because
Mm.
I've although my confidence wasn't there, I was learning so much from
Yes.
other women leaders, from my own mistakes, from my own learnings, from my own experiences. And then when I started working with you, I think it just gave me the confidence to put all of that knowledge into action. So I think it was all already kind of simmering there. It's just that I
Mm.
needed the confidence to have it brought out.
That's so interesting. It reminds me of this quote from Dolly Parton. And basically, Dolly Parton is the source of all truth. Everybody, don't get it twisted. She's brilliant. And she said, success is knowing who you are and doing it on purpose. And I think it's that, I think what she's speaking about there is what you're speaking about. It's all of the
Yeah,
pieces, it's all there, but it's the realization, oh, it's all here. you
yeah.
know, and then moving through with that kind of energy. Fascinating. Now, the next thing, and this idea of women role models, and you talked about in your early 20s, the big learning there for you was through observing, being inspired by powerhouse women. Um, and that's really fascinating because I think, in many cases, I can relate to that. And
Yeah.
in many cases, when I think about like what drives me, is it the money? For sure. Is it the desire to have an impact? For sure. but it's also this other thing, which is to be that woman,
Yeah,
and oddly, that in itself is like a really powerful, just to continue to be and dig in and see what's possible. How
yeah.
does that, what drives you? Because you are so ambitious and focused, like what drives that today?
Um, what drives me is success.
Mm.
I mean, obviously, money is always going to be a driver, but I wouldn't say it's the biggest driver. I think when you work for a family business, the energy and the passion is so high every day, just wanting to be a success, not just for yourself, but for your other family members.
Mm.
So, my mother and my father, I work with my sister and my husband as well. And yeah, so I think success really when you work in a family business is so big.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being the best we can.
Being the
Yeah.
best, I think really being the best that you can be, it's something that I've always wanted to do. I want to get to the end of my life and know that I have really done the best I could do,
Yeah.
really lived my life, and really proved to myself how much I can achieve.
Yes. So
Keep
exciting.
keep pushing, keep pushing. And that's something that I have really learned in the last couple of years, that I just keep pushing myself more and more. And then I fascinate myself at how what I can do. So then I want to push myself further. So yeah, it's quite an interesting journey.
It is. And so this idea of pushing yourself, because how do you reconcile that with, and this sort of inherent motivation, desire to push yourself for success, to accomplish something? How do you then reconcile that with, you're in the UK, lockdown number two? You have two small children, and not just any small children. Like I met these children, Rollo and Honeysuckle, and these kids are fire. Let me tell you, they are hilarious. So it's like they're filled with fireflies. I just remember like the attitude, the energy, like these are high energy children.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
And it's amazing in all of the best ways. I just love
yeah,
them.
yeah.
I will never forget. I will just never forget them basically ruling the roost, on the trails and pathways through the gorgeous resort we were staying at
Oh
in Mexico,
yes.
right? But anyway, how do you reconcile pushing
Mm,
yourself with the realities of this life stage where you have two really young people, and this circumstances where we're in lockdown? Like, tell me a little bit
mm.
about that, because I think that's a place where as women it's really important for us to share with each other how we get through these things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is something that I feel really, really strongly about. Um, well, the first thing is I have a very supportive husband. And, I am very lucky on that side of things. We are a complete team. Um, we work together, but when we're at home with the children, we are very joint as well. So that really helps hugely. I do have support. I have a nanny, so she's been absolutely wonderful in helping me with all of this, helping us. But really, I look after myself. I really take the time to be healthy and exercise. I don't drink. I gave up drinking about 4 months ago, which has really helped as well with just my clarity and my sleep. I make sure I have really good sleep hygiene, and I just always make sure that I don't put myself last. I really prioritize myself, because I know that if I don't look after myself, then a lot of other people will suffer for it, because I won't be able to be on top form. I may be snappy or emotional, or all of the things that you don't want from a leader. You
Yeah.
want consistency from a leader. You want someone who's going to be optimistic, who is going to lead the way, especially through these really tough times. And I was very, very aware of that.
Mm.
And so really looking after myself has just been a huge priority. And, I actually really enjoy looking after myself as well. So
I know, it's really fun.
it's like really great.
Listen, and I just want everyone who's listening to the show, there's 50 million excuses we can make for why we shouldn't do it. And then or you could just do it. You could just get to bed early. I remember reading a book. It was the woman who wrote um, something like, it was a book about happiness. Gretchen Rubin, that's her name. And she talked about going to bed early and the importance of going to bed early, and how oddly, what she would notice is around 9 o'clock, she would start to get tired. And then for whatever reason, she would fight her natural desire to go to sleep with, oh, it's time to watch TV, or, oh, it's time to, and so I really think this notion of prioritizing ourselves and taking care of ourselves, and seeing that it's actually the most selfless thing to do, to put ourselves first. I just hope that people really listen to that. Now, the
Yeah.
next thing that I wanted to dive into before we move into your start at Davidson London is this idea of learning through experience,
Mm.
learning through good experiences, learning from bad or challenging experiences. So when you think about when you think about learning from good and bad experiences, is one a more powerful teacher than the other? Like, are bad experiences a more powerful teacher, or good experiences a more powerful teacher? What's your sense of that?
I think, yeah, this is good, because when I look back, say, on my childhood and my school days, and failing a lot of my exams through my dyslexia, I feel that although that was really hard, and it did really kill my self-esteem for a long, long time, I feel that now it just made me a stronger person. So, I think bad experiences, or challenging experiences, let's call them, are definitely helpful for learning. Um, Good experiences, I think, can be really positive and upbeat, and can also help with your confidence. But yeah, I think sometimes maybe the challenging experiences are often the strongest ones.
Yeah, they forge a lot of character.
They
That's for
do.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they really do.
But the other thing about them that I think I've noticed for myself, like what bad experiences have taught me that good experiences haven't necessarily, is, and this could be a personal thing too. So I think some people I am wired to not look at red flags. So
Yeah.
I tend to, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs are this way, or many can be, where we have a positive orientation, and our natural wiring can sometimes be to focus mostly on the upside. You
Yeah.
wouldn't take the risks that we take, if you didn't have an orientation to the upside. But the challenge of that is that sometimes you're not paying enough attention to threats or red flags. And so what I have found is that all of the challenging experiences that I've had, not only have they forged character, but they've also become sort of data points, or, okay, next time, pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Next time, don't minimize a red flag. Don't write it off. Look into it more. Check
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
That's where I find it. Just, I remember in the military, they have a term called situational awareness, which is, are you aware not just of what's in front of you, but everything, what's on your back, what's to the side, what's ahead, what's above you, what's below you.
Yeah.
Situational awareness. And I find negative experiences help build situational awareness, which is so key as a CEO.
Absolutely. Yeah. I completely agree. Completely.
So you are in your mid 20s or so, you join the family business, you ask your mother and father to come into Davidson London, and you are working for barely anything. I love that. So tough, so tough.
I
Yes, you
know.
can, daughter, but you must earn your way. So tell us then, how did you move? Like, where did you start in the company, and what was the sort of process of stepping into the managing director role today?
So I started off doing PR and marketing, and I really used my initiative when it came to that. I think the first thing that I really had to do was understand our product. And the product that we were selling back then is very different to what we're selling now. So yeah, I remember, I was only 20 at this stage.
Okay.
So I was really quite young, and my mother would teach me on my lunch break about all of the different finishes in the company, all of the different woods, and just really debrief me on all of the pieces of furniture. And then I started reaching out to journalists and just really trying to get our furniture into as many magazines as possible. So that's really where I started. And then my natural progression was really into sales, which is where I stayed for quite a long time. But I was working in sales, but then getting more involved in the business. So at the age of 25, I actually took over the kind of financial side of the business at 25. I had a really wonderful accountant who really helped me with all of that. And that was something that I really felt very interested in.
Mm.
I loved seeing the numbers and how all of that worked. So I was working in sales and also finance. And I did that for quite a few years. And then we moved to London. We got the showroom, and then we moved to the design center, which was where we're still at now. And I think just over time, I worked in production. I've worked in pretty much every area of that business,
Mm.
and that has served me so well because I know the business inside out and back to front. And no one will ever be able to take that away from me. So when I lead our business, I'm leading with great knowledge of our company, and I think that really, really helps our team, because I'm consistent.
Mm.
I'm always the same. I know exactly where we want to go. I know what we're doing. I know how the company works. And I think that installs faith and confidence into our team members. Whereas, if you were at a company where the managing director was changing every 2 years and they came in and they changed the ideas, the structure, whatever, you wouldn't get that with us or in a family business.
Well, this is so interesting. I can remember reading Bob Iger's book. So, of course, he
Yeah.
was the chairman of Disney,
Hmm.
Ride of a Lifetime. And one of the things that he talks about in the book is the importance of detail orientation, preparedness, and conscientiousness for
Absolutely.
executives and leaders. And it's so important because one of the things that irks me and irritates me to no end is when I hear people saying, "Oh, I lead the company, but I don't manage."
Yeah.
Or I need to stay 100% focused on the big picture and not the details. And this sort of brings up what we were talking about earlier.
Mm.
You do need a grasp of the details. The devil is in the details. It doesn't mean to
100%.
hang out down there,
Yeah.
right? But being able to. So here's a question for you, because I think that what you're talking about, that consistency, and you've mentioned that a couple of times, and how important that is for the team. And I just want to link it back. The ability to be consistent has a lot to do with that self-care, right? The ability to,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
Really, 100%.
tell us, why do you think so what is it about your willingness to show up consistently day after day? and the commitment to do what it takes to look after yourself, to be able to do that, showing up consistently day after day. What is it about that? What do you think what does that unlock in the company? How does that improve company performance, do you think? How does it make you lead better? What's the biggest impact there?
I think it really motivates people.
Mm.
It builds strong connection and trust. I think that when I look at my team members, because I am consistent, they know that they can come to me with a situation or a problem, and that I will be able to help them work through things in a grown-up, mature attitude. Um, I I think it really encourages our team to stay motivated and to really enjoy their job. I think for me, when I look at myself, when I work at my best, it's when I'm clear in my head. It's when I'm motivated and when I'm happy. And to get all of those things, I need to know exactly where I'm going. So when I'm consistently leading my team, which means that they are clear.
Mm.
They are clear on what they need to be doing. They are clear on who I am, what I expect. I'm not up and down. And if I am feeling slightly pressured or stressed, then I tend to take myself away from the business, sort myself out, and then come back again.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think that's an amazing. And so, can you give us an example of what that would look like, taking yourself out of the
Yeah.
business? What does that look like specifically?
Yeah. So what I mean by that is, normally if I start wavering, it'll be because I'm overtired. So, and that's something that I've really learned over lockdown. No one's been on holiday for so long. And so people are forgetting to take breaks. And because we've just all been working so incredibly hard, sometimes for me, for everyone, I come up against a bit of a brick wall and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I have to stop. Otherwise, I'm going to start getting crabby. I'm going to just be irritable. So I just take a day off, or
Mm.
I take a morning off, and I just spend time on my own and I just recharge.
Yeah.
And I know that that is the best thing for me, and it's the best thing for the business, and it's the best thing for my team members. It's the best thing for my marriage. It's everything. We have to look after ourselves.
Yes. Now, one of the things that comes up a lot, when you talk about the business and the success of Davidson London, really is all about team,
Yeah, absolutely.
and that's a huge sort of focus. And I wanted to check in around that, around team building and
Yep.
team, because you've made bold decisions here and bold choices here, as you have intentionally built the right kind of team. Mistakes, there have been brilliant decisions, learnings, I'm sure, all along the way from when you first started in the company at 20. When
Yep.
you think about building a team, hiring a team, making sure that you've got the right players at the table, what have been the biggest lessons from your experiences hiring, firing,
Yeah.
motivating, leading, guiding, coaching? Like, what have been
Yeah.
the biggest lessons that, if you could give a CEO who's listening just two of your biggest insights from team, what would they be?
Yeah. So I think the first thing would be that you can't create the perfect team overnight. Um, I mean, that over the last couple of years, our team have come and go, and I have had to make some tough decisions with some team members, and we've had to let people go, and we've rehired, and that can be quite time consuming. But I would say that really allowing yourself to have the time to find the right people is really important. And also understanding whether you are a company that will train people or not train people.
Ooh, that's so good. Yes.
Yeah,
Say more about
because
that.
yeah, well, we are a company, we've got 13 team members. So I haven't got the time to be training lots of people. That isn't the type of business that we are. We're not a large corporate company. So when we take people on, I need them to be really qualified and really intelligent and know exactly what they're doing. So
Guys who are listening, this is a huge point, because I think that sometimes I think there are so many people who go into an entrepreneurial business with that sort of more corporate mentality, where there are the people, the resources, and the budgets to train.
yeah,
In an entrepreneurial environment, it's much different. It's much different. And I think I agree. I think that's been my philosophy too. If I have to train you, you're not the right fit.
yeah,
So
I
it's
agree.
like, yeah, but I also love that piece of like giving yourself time, because I also think there's this other thing about team that we don't talk about a lot, but it's huge. And I really learned this from sports. It's about
Yes,
chemistry between the players. And so sometimes you can have a player come in who's great, but they don't have the right chemistry, or they throw the team chemistry off, and you can give it some time, but chemistry is really important.
hugely. And that affects your culture, which is obviously so important in
Yeah.
any company. I mean, I've had situations where, the chemistry has not been good,
Mhm.
where office politics, and that's something that as a leader, as an MD, no one must ever allow office politics in a business. It's
Ever,
dangerous, ever, ever.
ever, ever.
It's something that
Killer.
I say right from the beginning. It will never be tolerated. We communicate, and we communicate well. And if you don't know how to communicate well, then you need to learn pretty quickly,
Yeah.
because, we just don't tolerate those kinds of things. It's not grown up, it's not cool, and it just doesn't produce results.
One of the best that exactly office politics. And I will say that that's another sort of hangover that can sometimes come from corporate culture.
Yeah.
It's this weird, I find so many women who leave the corporate world. One of the things that they disliked the most about the corporate world was politics. And then you have to watch that doesn't infiltrate in your own company and just eat the heart out of it,
Yeah.
But I want to share just a fun resource. All of you need to go and Google Dave Ramsey office gossip or something. And it's a 30-second rant about his view on gossip in the office play, in the workplace. It is well worth your time, my friends, for a great, he tells you how he deals with it. He kind of deals with it like you do, Alex. But I mean,
Wonderful.
just right, just brilliant. So we could talk all day about, and I think there's so many takeaways from this conversation today, really about, sort of stepping into CEO confidence. Some of the themes that are really emerging is this idea of it's about knowing who you are and having the courage to bring those pieces together,
Yes.
really to
Yeah.
bring those pieces together to sort of forge who you are, as a leader. It's the willingness to take care of yourself and know how important that is, to be able to show up consistently so
Mm.
that you can continue moving things forward, inspiring others in a really consistent way, which is huge. I would love for you to
Yeah.
speak on, because this has always been something that's important to me, but kind of speak on the what role coaching has played in your, for you, to support you doing these things. What
Mm.
what thoughts do you
Yeah.
have on that?
Well, yeah, I love answering this because it has been so huge. And I think that anyone who knows me, especially my family members, would be able to say that coaching has been one of the best things that I have ever invested in.
Mm.
So I've had two business coaches. The first one was great, a man, but it was really, until I started working with you, that I could really see the huge benefit of working with a woman, but with a woman who really I felt like I understood so well, and everything that is said just felt so clear and natural and right. It has worked so well for me. And so I would really encourage any managing director or CEO
Mm.
who wants to move forward with their career and really push through build their confidence, and if they've got self-esteem issues, anything like that, to really find a coach that works for them.
Yeah.
But I think finding the right fit is so important, because if you're not the right fit, it could potentially be a little bit of a waste of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been immensely beneficial to me, immensely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that idea, and I think it comes to chemistry as well, because again, it's not something we talk about all the time, but I really think that the coaching relationship, in many ways, it's like another team member. But it's like you've
Yeah,
got the team that works with you on a day-to-day basis, and then this other team. And that other team, that's a team I'm on, and it's a
yeah,
different team. It's a different team and the role is different, but the chemistry there is just as important. And I think it comes, to me, it's so interesting to sort of, you talked about the importance of women's relationships and women inspiring each other and women support, that was so critical to you earlier in your career. And I think that continues. I have seen in my own life, it's having that support and encouragement of other women is so
yeah.
critical. You don't need a ton, but you just need a few, and
Absolutely.
it
Oh,
really makes a difference.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, we're a female-led team. So the majority of my team members are female. And when I look at my team members, I've got a very, very good relationship with all of the women in my business.
Mm.
But when in terms of really looking up to other women, and having that respect, it's about respecting other really strong women. And it's great. I
Yeah.
mean, when I have my sessions with you, our coaching sessions, it's so powerful. And everything that you learn, and just the confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we could talk all day. Where should people go? Definitely, you need to go check out Davidson London on Instagram. By the way, just do yourself that favor. Check out the gorgeousness.
Yes.
Where else should people go to learn about you and the company?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more, then I think the best thing would be to check out our website, which is davidsonlondon.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for spending time on the
Oh, you're more than
show.
welcome.
Yeah, it was so great walking through the journey, walking through the pathway. And so, guys, if you loved this episode, be sure to leave us a review on iTunes, specifically cite this episode, some of your biggest takeaways. Connect with us on Instagram, Davidson London. I'm Eleanor Beaton, of course. And let us know what you thought and what your biggest takeaways from this episode, really focused on building CEO confidence. Thanks so much, Alex.
Thank you.